8th graders, looking at your formal learning scale for our algebra unit, the last 2 days we've been solving 2-step equations. Prior to that, we've been solving 1-step equations, all of which to get us into this level 3 understanding. And that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to solve multi-step equations that have one variable in it. And we're also going to be able to satisfy the second bullet, as we have ever since the beginning of this unit. We're going to justify the steps by identifying the properties of equalities. That just means that if you add something to one side of an equation, you need to add it to the other to maintain that equality. So, looking at your notes, our topic is multi-step equations today. In your learning target, you can solve multi-step equations. So let's get familiar with a few vocab words aligned with this lesson. We need to know what like terms are. You've dealt with it as 7th graders and 6th graders and possibly even as 5th graders. Like terms have the same variable connected to it. So you need to understand today how to combine like terms and that you can't combine things that are not alike. For example, 4 plus 3x, you cannot combine the 4 and 3 because the 4 doesn't have the x next to it. You also need to understand the vocab word simplifying. Simplify, when I say to simplify, it means to combine all the like terms. So what that means is you have an expression that is long and you want to shorten it. You want to make it look a little bit more simple, and you can do that by combining like terms. So I'm going to combine my x's, 3x plus 4x, I would have 7x's. Now I can combine my whole numbers. 2 and 6, I have 8 whole numbers. And that's what the simplified answer would be. You can't combine that 7 and 8 because they are not like terms. Solving. We've been solving ever since we started this unit. It just means get the variable alone. So when I say solve for x, solve for a, solve for any variable, it means you have to have x all by itself on one side of the equal sign. And you need to know what coefficient is. Remember, coefficient is a number in front of a variable. So my coefficient there is 4. My coefficient on this one would be -2. My coefficient here is not nothing. There's that 1 in front that's just hiding. So remember, coefficient is a number in front of a variable. All right, now we're going to get to the application now that we know the vocab words. We are going to solve while combining like terms. The first thing that I need you to do, if there is nothing in front of a variable, I want you to put a 1 in front of it. That's like that last example I gave you. If I had -x, it's really -1. If I had x, it's really 1x. So when you're combining today, you need to know if there's nothing in front of the variable, you put a 1. And then, of course, we need to change any minus signs to plus a negative. All right, so 2 things we want to do. We want to see if the variable is by itself, put a 1 or -1 in front. And then we want to change any minus sign to plus a negative. All right, I guess we're not solving here because there's no equal sign. So this looks like I'm simplifying using my like terms. Oops, I didn't look ahead. So this is simplifying. That means I'm not solving because if you recall, solving, you have a variable all by itself. So this is just combining like terms. All right, I don't have any minus signs, but I do have nothing in front of my coefficients or my variable, so I put a 1 there. 1x plus 1x gives me 2x's plus 5. And that is my simplified answer. Okay, next one. I see I have 12x plus 4 minus 3x. So I'm going to change this minus to plus a negative. Now I'm thinking, what can I combine? 12 and negative 3x gives me a positive 9x. And then I can't combine any whole numbers, so my simplified expression would be 9x plus 4. Okay, the next one. Again, I'm looking for any minus signs, so I can change it to plus a negative. I see a minus sign right here, plus a negative. A minus sign right after, plus a negative. And it looks like I have an x and a y in whole numbers. So I am going to go ahead and start working left to right. So negative 2y plus 5y gives me 3 left. So I have 3y plus, now I'll deal with my x's, 1x plus a negative 5x's gives me a negative 4x. Now I'll deal with my whole numbers. 10 wholes plus a negative 7 wholes gives me 3 wholes left. Now notice I cannot combine anything else. That means I'm simplified because I have a y, an x, they can't combine together, and then the integer of 3, and I can't combine that with anything. So I am done. That's how you know you are done if you can't combine any other like terms. All right, here we're dealing with the solving steps. So the first thing that you're going to do is distribute if you need to. We did that back in our first unit. Distribute is like this, where you have a number sticking to parentheses. And to distribute, you multiply. So that would be 2 times 2 is 4x, plus 2 times 3 is 6. So that is like the most important thing you need to do when you are solving an equation. And then you combine your like terms, and then you solve for the variable. Remember, you know you are done when the variable is all by itself. So our goal, get the variable by itself. That is our goal. All right, let's work through some examples here. I have x plus 3x minus 2 equals 6. I'm going to go ahead and turn my minus 2 into plus a negative 2. I don't need to distribute, so I don't need to do anything there. I can combine like terms, so that's what I'm going to work on right now. 1x plus 3x's, now I have 4x's, plus a negative 2 equals 6. So I combine my like terms, now I'm going to solve. Remember, we moved what's not sticking to the variable, that's my negative 2. What's the inverse of negative 2? Plus 2. Maintain that equality and plus 2 to both sides of the equation. 4x equals 8. And now that's 4 times x. The inverse of times is divide. So I get x is equal to 2. And I am done because my variable is all by itself. Next example, I'm going to just go right back to step 1. Do I need to distribute? No, because there's no parentheses, so I don't need to distribute. I do need to combine like terms, so that's what I'm working on now. So I'm going to turn this minus 9 into plus a negative 9. 12x plus a negative 9x, 3 x's left. And then 3 wholes plus 7 wholes gives me 10. So I have 3x plus 10 is 13. So now I combine my terms. Now I'm going to solve. Move what's not sticking to the variable, so that's my plus 10. The inverse of positive 10 or plus 10 would be to subtract 10 to both sides of the equal sign, maintaining that equality. 3x comes down, and we get 3x equals 3. That's 3 times x. The inverse of times is divide. And you get x equals 1 as your final answer. And I'm done because my variable is by itself, so I have solved it. Moving on to the next one. This one is where I do have to distribute because I see the parentheses there. So I'm going to distribute my 2 to the x and 3. 2 times x is 2x plus 2 times 3 is 6 equals 10. Now I don't need to combine any like terms, so I'm going to go ahead and just solve. I need to move what's not sticking to my variable, so that's my 6. I'm going to subtract it to both sides, and I get 2x equals 4. Divide by 2, x is 2. All right, another one. This one's a little bit more rigorous because you have to distribute, you're going to have to combine like terms, and you're going to have to solve. So I'm going to turn this minus sign into plus a negative. I'm going to go ahead and distribute. I'm only distributing to my x and negative 2 though, because the 3x isn't by the parentheses. 3x plus 2 times x is 2x, plus 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 equals 6. Combine like terms, so I can combine my x's. 3 and 2x is a 5x, plus negative 4 equals 6. Now I'm going to move what's not connected to my variable, my negative 4. The inverse of negative 4 is 2 plus 4, and I get 5x equals 10. Divide by 5, and x is 2. Last example for the day. This one is definitely the trickiest one because there's a hidden negative involved. So you need to plus a negative to all the minuses. Distribute first. I'm going to distribute my 3. Negative 3, it's a negative 3 that I'm distributing. So 4x plus negative 3 times x is negative 3x, plus negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6 equals 21. Combine like terms. 4x and negative 3x is 1x left, plus 6 equals 21. Now I'm going to move what's not sticking to my x, that's the 6. So I'm going to subtract 6 to both sides, and you get 1x equals 15. Remembering that the 1 likes to hide, so final answer, x is 15. So recall the steps. What you need to do when you're solving a multi-step equation, that's that first bullet in our formal learning scale. You need to distribute if you have to. You need to combine like terms, and then you solve. And x or y or a or b or the variable always needs to be by itself. So 3 steps: distribute, combine like terms, solve. And when you solve, you're always doing that inverse operation.